out here on Palmyra Atoll, and we're here to assess its suitability for release of sea heck or Guam kingfisher. And this will be an assisted colonisation. The birds have never been present on this island previously, and so we have to carefully assess its suitability in terms of habitat structure, food availability, everything that these birds will need to successfully establish a population.
Great net.
Fantastic. What is your reaction? You've been here for 5-6 days. We knew little about the place before we arrived. How do you feel about it now after a week with your sea heck hat on?
Well, I think it's quite interesting. I first started to get involved with the sea heck project in 2008 or thereabouts when I went to Guam, and I saw the terrible situation there with the brown tree snake and how so many species have been lost from the wild. And we started to talk about where could we establish another population of this wonderful kingfisher. And over the years there's been a lot of debate, and most recently it's been proposed that we put it here on Palmyra. And Palmyra is an atoll that has very few endemics, and historically didn't have any endemic land birds. So the traditionalists would tend to suggest that it is not the appropriate place to put a kingfisher. However, when you actually visit this island, you see what potential it has, and you see an incipient ecosystem. You see that there are possibilities for re-establishing a functional ecosystem. Palmyra was devastated during the Second World War when there were with the Battle of the Pacific and when there were people stationed here, but since then it has started to recover. And I think as conservation biologists and as reintroduction biologists, we got to think about building the future, not rebuilding the past. We cannot turn the clock back. We got to think about establishing functional ecosystems that benefit a maximum of biodiversity. So Palmyra has huge possibilities. And I look forward to coming back in the future and seeing not just sea heck here, but perhaps also Guam rails, perhaps other species of birds, and various reptiles such as skinks and geckos. I think it is an opportunity to rebuild a functional system that will benefit a whole host of critically endangered species.
What's the prospects for sea heck out here?
Yeah. So I think there was some uncertainty coming out here at first. Would there be enough prey availability? Would the habitat fit what we think sea heck would like? We had the written plan and that all seemed really great. I was confident about that, but would it fit with the habitat once we got out here? After seeing everything, now I'm super optimistic that the birds would do well out here. There's plenty of food, crabs, lots of insects and other invertebrates, and the habitat's just amazing. So yeah, I really think they will do really well out here.
Well, it's another beautiful day here in paradise. It's a very wet day. It rains a lot out here on Palmyra Atoll, but actually we think that's a pretty good thing. It means that there's lots of standing water, there's lots of water available for the birds, and that also allows an abundance of insects, which we hope will be a good food source, one of the good food sources for the birds. And so actually we're feeling pretty confident about it. I'm dry right now. The day's just started. I think within about 2 seconds I'm going to be wet to the bone, and that'll be me for the day. coming to say hello. What's the most interesting thing that you think you're going to be able to learn or study?
I think the CHEC give us a really great opportunity to learn more about extinct in the wild species in general and how their behaviors change in captivity. So one thing I was struck by when I went to visit Guam was the CHEC seemed very wild to me, more wild than I would have thought a bird would still be after many, many generations in captivity, and I was really impressed by that. But that might just be an assumption, and once the birds get out here, we'll learn more about what a wild CHEC really looks like. And comparing that back to how they behave in captivity will be really interesting and maybe help inform our management of the species in captivity and also better prepare CHEC for future releases. So I think that will be a really great thing to get out of the Palmyra population in particular, is helping to prep birds in the future for returning to Guam or any other future sites they might go to.
What does this mean in the bigger picture of zoos' involvement in conservation and care of extinct in the wild species?
So absolutely, one of the primary missions of zoos now is conservation of species in wild places, and the idea that AZA has been working for nearly 40 years maintaining CHEC in our populations, all with the hope of someday getting them back on the island of Guam, released into their natural habitat. This is just a small step towards that goal, but I think it's a huge step for us. A lot of our partners have worked many, many years keeping the species going, carefully monitoring our breeding and our genetics so that when the time was right, we had the right birds to try to put back on an island. I think those team members that get to come out here, it'll be the experience of a lifetime for them. You can work your entire career in a zoo and never get to do a release. And you know, some of the species we work with aren't extinct in the wild like CHEC. So that makes this place, this project, even more special for those zoo staff that get to participate out here.
So I grew up in the 70s and 80s down in New Zealand, where we've got a really strong history of conserving our species. But I also read really widely, and I was conscious of Guam kingfishers from a very young age, and I never thought that I'd be playing a very small part in helping to get them back into the wild. Most of my work is around establishing new wild populations from wild populations, and this week it's just been a real honour to work with this group of people and to play a very tiny part in achieving this audacious goal.
Okay, so one of the jobs this week is to decide where it is that we're going to build our temporary holding aviaries that the fledgling CHEC will get put into for a few weeks before they are finally released into the wild. And over this time we want them to develop some of their hunting techniques. We want to be able to monitor them, confirm that they're eating okay, that they're eating the food items that they will be encountering once they are released. And in order to do that, we need to find a nice area where these aviaries will have a nice canopy cover to protect from the heat and the sun and a bit of the rain. We've seen lots of rain this week. We also need to have a good airflow through. It can get very hot out here on Palmyra, so we want to make sure that the birds have a good flow of air through those aviaries. And somewhere like this looks fantastically good. We're pretty sure that this might be one of the sites where we build one of these temporary release aviaries. You can see over my shoulder a nice high canopy, nice and open. Another important aspect of this is that the birds are going to be able to have a good view of the environment outside the aviary, and that's the environment in which they're going to be released into. So we're pretty happy with places like this, and there's plenty of them here on Cooper Island. It's important that it's here because it's also very, very close to the main station, where we'll have obviously our kitchen area and food prep base to provide for the birds and make it a lot easier for the field team that's looking after them. So here it is, probably one of the first places that we'll see sea heck back in the wild.
So if you actually rear birds and giving them lots of stimulus, they will actually be able to cope a lot better with the world around them. And I think one of the ideas that we were putting forward was that we would rear the birds in such a way that they would not be neophobic. All right? And we've seen this a lot with captive bred birds. A lot of captive bred birds are very neophobic, because you've got to remember that a captive environment compared to the wild environment very often is a deprivation chamber. There's very little input in terms of auditory stimulation, visual stimulation, and so on.
Yeah, no, I've got our breeding pair, they won't move. If you almost have to be out of the building, and then you see them on the camera, they'll go.
And, that's awesome. Like, that's really reassuring.
Yeah.
Because a lot of captive bred animals, captivity selects captivity, and if they're smart, then you select for that line. And it sounds like you've got animals that just behave like wild animals.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing to me in Guam, was how wild the birds.
Yeah.
I think with the three Guam species that I've worked with, you've got the crow on one hand that really need to teach them everything. And we've got the Coco, who's got instinct, but yet likes to play and learn stuff as well too.
Just goofballs.
The flipping turtles, and then we've got the sea heck, who's just a dinosaur.
I went across, I caught a Greyhound bus once from Denver to Lincoln, Nebraska, and then
Is there anything that you're worried about with the program in terms of concerns you have as a refuge manager?
They're all the usual things whenever we're talking about something like this, and they're all being addressed, thankfully, so far as I can tell. We're always worried about unintended consequences are always what we're concerned about a lot of experts vetting this for a long period of time. There's monitoring that's going to be going on, quarantine of the birds before they come in. Those are all the usual things as a manager thinking about what's coming into a refuge that we're thinking about and worried about. But some of these things have happened. We're building on the shoulders of a lot of great other projects have sorted a lot of these things out. We've learned from their mistakes, and I'm sure there'll be a few of our own that we make that others will learn from as well. And as long as we believe the risk is low enough, which I believe it is, it's gonna be a great project. It's gonna be a great learning opportunity for conservation projects around the world.
To you personally, how does it feel that you're standing here and we could be releasing birds in a year? Like we might be establishing our first wild population. Like, to you, what does that mean inside your heart?
Right, I have actually been thinking about that a lot the past, not at the beginning, but now towards the latter part of this trip. I've been thinking that, my gosh, this actually is going to happen. And like you said, I've been working on this project since at least 2001. And there never has been a moment when I was saying to myself, this is actually going to happen. It's always been, this is probably not going to happen. And a release will not happen during my lifespan at DAR. And this is the first time that I'm really it is. And it's amazing, and I'm excited for the birds. I'm excited for Guam. It's an incredible feeling, and I couldn't be happier.